And this is fairly informal, but this is welcome to the Spiritual Seekers Dialogue. And once a month, we have often a special topic, and we're open to ideas for next month. If you have any, but today, Deb is going to share a little bit about psychic abilities, mediumship, fruits of the spirit, and connecting with spirit, and maybe talk about some of her recent learning journey. And also, I'm going to hand it over to you, Deb. Thank you for being here.
Hello, friends. Good to see you all. I'm
Oh,
calling. I'm calling to. I'm calling today my coming out of the closet performance or show or truthfulness. So I've been on this journey. The farthest back I can remember is when I was a kid, realizing that I had a strong intuition on things and a strong sense of knowing. And not that I was different others that others that had these same recognizing of their God-given abilities. But in my family, I was always called a know-it-all. My dad would call me the big D because I always could step up and say, "Oh, I know," or "Let's do it this way," or "What do you think about doing it this way?" or "I think that's what this means." So early on, I kind of worked through the non-recognition that I was feeling or sensing in my immediate family. And I was able to kind of excel in some of these, what I now know to be, I want to say gifts of the spirit, but perhaps they are better now that I'm done further studying. I understand that they're really perhaps being in touch with the divinity that I truly am. We all have. And so I just want to start off. There's a couple things I don't I'm a I'm a professional lecturer by trade. I worked at the community college, so I tend to put together presentations and present them like a lecture, but I'm trying really hard and I'm working with Leroy and Mary and Lucille and other of my mentors to develop better skills in dialogue. And I will tell you that for a long time, I've I've needed this platform because my window of friends and my window of being able to express some of the truths that are coming to me is becoming very narrow. In fact, I've just now um, came out of the closet to my mother and my closest friends. So there are still friends that are in my orbit every day that don't know that I can do this or that I've tapped into this or that I've embraced this. So this is and 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 I don't feel uncomfortable. And I've really worked to get to this point. So I just want to I just want to kind of set the stage for a dialogue. And we're together for like 50 minutes or 55 minutes. So if I ramble a little bit, there'll be pauses. As Leroy asked me, pause, Debbie, pause, Debbie. So this sense of humor that's coming out is something new for me. And I've asked Spirit to help me be more humorous in my dialogue. So you might see things that perhaps weren't present 10 years ago, so to speak. But I'd like us to all look at the ways that spirit communicates with us. And it's in my studies that I've been partaking in for about 10 years now. I I have come to the acceptance that souls who have transitioned they really want to communicate with me. And I'm going to use it reference to me, but you, of course, understand that this is not just to me, this is to us or to you. The spirits want to connect with you, with me, and they want to engage in our lives. Okay. Just, I want to give you a couple things that have happened most recently to me that really turned the page for me. Well, there's more than just one thing, but most recently, most of you know that my husband passed, made his transition in June of 2023. And he constantly interacts with me either in my dreams. He also gives me signs. One of the most profound signs that he did around Christmas is he actually moved a pillow from my couch to my chair when I was out of the room, of course, because he probably knew it would freak me out if I saw it move. He's also created a ladybug from a suitcase when I was traveling, that I opened up my suitcase and a ladybug came out. Ladybugs are a memory for my husband and I, because the day that we got married on October 20th, we got married outside on the Grand River, and it was a new hatching of, we call them ladybugs, but they were probably the Japanese little red bugs, little beetle bugs. Okay. And my white dress, I did wear white, had red dots on it. And so when we were standing getting our vows, I'll just tell this story. I didn't think I was going to, but he's saying, tell the story. He reached over and he was going like this to my breast. And I said, don't do that in front of the minister. And he said, I'm just I'm just getting the ladybug off. And so it's kind of been a little humor for us. So every so often, ladybugs show up. Most recently was New Year's Day. I was sitting in a room that used to be his office at our home. And that's another whole long story, but it doesn't quite fit into this presentation. But I was sitting in the area that I've now made kind of my rec room, my craft room, my office room. And I looked out and a dove appeared on a pergola that I have, and opened its chest and rammed into my window 3 times and then looked at me. And now you can say, well, that's just a coincidence. But when you start to truly recognize some people say synchronicities, or recognize things, and you have a belief like I do, I'm really truly a spiritualist, that it is a message or a sign from spirit. So I also received a message from my father when he passed in 2017. I wear diamond little stud earrings, and one came out. And I was so nervous. I couldn't find it at work. I couldn't find it around the home. I opened my bed that night and the diamond earring was laying next to my pillow. Okay, so maybe it came off in the night and I just didn't look there, but I swear I did look. So those are just some of the things that I would like you to be aware of, and actually start to believe that they are signs that our loved ones who have crossed over are making with us, and they're encouraging us to communicate, and so they can engage in our lives. I want to talk, those were things that, visual things that I expressed, because they seem to be the most dynamic to share. But of course, in our meditations or in our dreams, spirits also make contact with us. And so those, we have to be aware of that. And that does require that we get to a level of many of all of us, probably all of us do meditate. And it's that vastness, that emptiness that we get to, that spirits make their entry. And so really, in terms we've learned over all these studies that we've done, we're raising our vibration. Okay. There's many different ways that we can refer to that. Going closer into the vortex, through meditation, connecting with your divine higher self, um, those kinds of things. When we raise our vibration, it's easier for spirit because spirit is vibrating at a higher level. And so when we raise our vibration through methods that we use that are comfortable for us, then we are closer to connected with spirit. So as a medium, what I what I do is get to a spot where I'm in that voidness, that pureness, attaching to my divinity and allowing spirits to come through my humanness. And I am a vessel then for spirit. I'd like you to take a minute, now that I've kind of set the stage here, take a minute and think about and share what are other ways that spirits communicate with us. I'll just get us started. Maybe a gut feeling in your stomach. Okay, a gut feeling in your stomach is usually spirit trying to get your attention. A heightened awareness of something. Now I'll let you take off your unmic yourself. Right? Is that okay, Leroy? Everybody unmic themselves and just let's have a little dialogue. What are some ways that perhaps you've felt spirit is trying to get your attention? I mentioned humor. Being a non-humorous person by trait, I've noticed that my humor is becoming more prevalent.
I want to mention it's okay to mic yourself. Just unmic yourself when you want to speak.
I've certainly had lots of messages come through dreams, and just when I'm in a sleep state, oftentimes I'm awakened with some kind of message.
Mm-hmm. Whenever and this goes way back from when I taught school, whenever I wanted to create something, whether it was a song or a play or a story, I would meditate, sleep on it, and lots of times it would come through to me. I'm more of a processor all the time. I don't make a lot of real fast decisions on anything. But usually when I sleep on something, the answer comes or I become more creative. I guess I would call myself a channel when that happens. Also, there have been times driving when I was able to avoid a couple of really bad accidents. Twice, I know, I was at a stoplight, and when it turned green, something told me to just look to the right, and this truck just came barreling right through. If I had gone on the green, there would have been an accident. It's happened twice where people have run red lights and just, came right through. And both times something was protecting me or communicating with me to be careful about that.
Right. So, Julia, that would be So it could be your guardian angels.
Mhm.
It could be your spirit guide. It could be your loved ones. I mean, there might be mediums and psychics that would be able to tell you exactly who that is, or in your meditation or in your thankfulness, you would thank those, and perhaps one might step forward and say, "Oh yeah, that was your papa uh, telling you to look this way," or it could be that your guardian angel could have helped avoid that. So we might say that you had a heightened awareness. You were made a heightened awareness. So we've got gut feelings, heightened awareness. Um, we've got them appearing physically or in your dreams. Is there anyone else that like to add some other ways?
So I've had premonitions in the past, and when those happen, it's a different feeling. It's almost like a seizure kind of feeling where my consciousness just feels different than normal. And it's not like sleeping, it's not like dreaming, and it's not like being awake. It's somewhere in the middle of dreaming and being awake.
Yeah, they say that in my training. They say that you're reaching a higher vibration.
Mhm.
Okay, so when you're in that state, know that you're reaching a higher vibration. And if you wanted to act on that, you could actually perhaps make contact with those who have transitioned, or through your premonitions, you might be given a premonition, which a premonition is really so a premonition is more of a listening to your intuition, and you're being given a message, but not like, and this is where I'm still murky. It could come from your loved ones, your spirit guides, or your angels. When you're considered a psychic, my spirit guide would connect with your spirit guide, and through that is when psychicness occurs. You see what I mean? Because it's only the spirit guides that know the Akashic records, and they operate in that level of I'm just saying divinity for easy way to understand it, but it's that vastness, that place that quantum physics calls no time and space is linear.
Mhm.
Okay. And so unless we've had training to in Akashic records or things like that, which I've only taken one class on, and it doesn't at this point doesn't interest me because I don't know how to use that information. I do not, want to know when I'm going to make my transition, or this kind of thing. So I don't really know, but it is very curious and interesting to me, the whole study of Akashic records. And some people claim to do that, but uh, and how to unlock it and such. Let me just give you a few more uh, ways that I've learned that spirit does communicate with us. Whenever you have a doubt or a hesitation or a surprise, or your curiosity is spiked, or you may have anxiety or wonderment, suspicion, persistent thoughts, or a nagging feeling. Those are all ways that could be recognized as communication tried to be made to you. For example, I was given many, 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 many um, of all of this for a relationship that I was in once, but I didn't listen. Okay. I was also given all of these things in a job that just wasn't a right fit for me. Do you see what I'm saying? So if we can choose to listen or we can choose not to, and that's the wonderment of being human. Okay. And so, like Miss Mary, in a presentation she did a few weeks ago, talked about our humanness and our divinity and trying to mesh the two. And so, and that is a common, that's a common theme in materials that we've all studied. A Course of Love, A Course in Miracles, when we study the untethered soul. Those are all things. Edgar Casey, we can go on and on about all of the information we've been given to try to act out of our divinity as well as work within our humanness. Okay, because that's what we're experiencing in this earth plane. Now, I know that I'm just speaking to the choir here, actually, because these are all things that we've either studied or experienced. Is there any comment?
Do you think children are gifted with this?
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
born,
Definitely.
they
Definitely.
have it and then they just ignore it, and we'll have to come back to it at some point.
Well, the two mediums that I'm working with, Lisa Williams and Matt Frazier, both had grandparents and parents that were psychic mediums. And so they were embraced at a very young age to be comfortable with their gifts. Okay. Whereas I didn't really have anyone to help me. The first help I got was when I was about 20 years old, when I was at college. I came to a spiritualist church, and that was my first confirmation of spiritualism and where I received my first readings and became connected with my true belief in spiritualism. So it took me until I got 20 years old to get to the point. And, I have 4 grandsons. I would love to have them know about me. It's one of the reasons why I asked Leroy if he would record this, because I want them to know about me. And not only me, not only my grandsons, but it's important that we all now have heard the message, heard the call to be the light bearer, to be the illuminator, to be the leader as we go through these shifts. And I'll tell you, I turned 70 years old in January. And for me, it was a sudden click that, okay, Deb, you need to act on what you're being given. And that's what has given me the courage to step out like I am right now. And I don't know where this is going to take me. I don't know. I only trust and have faith that, things are going to evolve how they should. Um, okay. We already talked about who or what is spirit. That was a question that Miss Mary asked me when I was talking to her about my little talk here. And she said, okay, Deb, who is spirit that you're referring to? Okay. For me, in my mind, I've kind of put it into a fragmented, just because I see God, let's call it source, however, the highest vibration, however you want to relate to it. I see that as kind of like spirit. Okay. And then I know that my physical body is a soul that's connected with my spirit to God's spirit. Okay. So that's when I say connecting with spirits, or how do we connect with spirit? It kind of all meshes together, but I think you can piece it out. So we all know that that we have spirit guides, even though I'm only aware of one of mine, and it's an Indian. He's an Indian, and he goes by Morning Dove, and he's circled in green light. I have never seen him, but when I've had other readings done from people who can see spirit guides, they see him standing over my shoulder right here. Okay. I don't, I sense protection and comfort, kind of, so to speak, but I have never, he does appear to me in my dreams. Interestingly, if you go into my office space, my spiritual sanctuary that I'm right now having my readings in, there are many Indian pictures on the walls, and that's just come over my years. We also know that we have angels, and I've been to people who have done like hands-on clearing of my chakras, and they have training and abilities that they are able to call in different angels, and they help to smooth my chakras and balance me and such. I have not studied that at all, but I do appreciate those who have. Okay. They also go to other dimensions, and I think that that could be best referred to as different vibrations that we're able to take our consciousness to. And I think that that's where healing occurs. I'll tell a quick story. I went to Lilydale in Western New York last summer. Lilydale is one of the very first spiritualist communities in the United States. It's actually on the trail that the women suffragette traveled and gave presentations. Very, very, very high vibration in that area. And I was grieving from the loss of my husband. Okay. And I received not so much hands-on, but they give free readings and healings. And I probably had, in the 3 or 4 days I was there, maybe 6 healings from spiritualists. I came back totally molecularly healed of my grief. And I know it's truth. Okay. For me, it was truth. Okay. I also when I was at Lilydale, I walked into the main hall to listen to Lisa Williams, actually. She has a home there. She's a very, very well-known psychic. She had TV programs like 10 or 15 years ago. I've spent a little bit of money, and I'm one of her students. I walked into this hall, which is probably over 100 years old, and I heard Deborah. I looked up. I heard Deborah over to this side. I looked, because I was with like 3 other ladies. I thought, well, maybe they're calling me, but they were all sitting in their chair. And then another real loud, Deborah, from up high. And it was at that time I realized that I was being contacted by spirits. Okay, that's truth. That's a true thing that happened to me. So you see, some of these things have just made me really realize and be so grateful for how I'm vibrating, because at this point, experiencing love, losing love from my loved one, my husband, and I look around at all the blessings I have in my life, I'm kind of like wondering, okay, what is the next step for me? And it seems like embracing my abilities and staying in tune with spirit is really the way I want to finish this out, so to speak. If you can appreciate that lingo. Would anyone else like to comment on that?
I experienced a reading with Deb, and it was awesome. I think she's really a clear channel, even though she thinks she's a beginner.
Thank you, Lucille. One other place that you can look for spirit, of course, we all know this, in our flowers, in our nature, in our sunrises and in our sunsets, in the forest, in the wildflowers, in the snow, in the rain, in the animals, in the insects. Those are all ways that if you're open, you can make contact with spirit. True story, my sister, who is I love her with all of my heart, can watch a sunset and not ever say it's beautiful or she appreciates it. Me, I'm in love with it. So it's just a difference of how you want to recognize what's going on around you.
Deb, have
Yep.
you ever asked your spirit guides or angels for guidance?
Oh,
with
all the time.
major decisions?
All the time. Can I address that in just a few minutes? Okay. Because I want to spend just a little bit more time on gifts of the spirit. And for some of you that have a foundational background like I do in the Bible, but also I was aware of at age 20 the Rosicrucians, Yogananda. There was a handful of others that I studied with my spiritual mentor when I was very, very young. But in the Bible, for those of us who need evidence, written evidence in the Bible, Jesus refers to it in Paul as gifts of the Spirit. Now, it could be in reference because if you remember the whole story that the Holy Spirit was given to mankind as being the communicator between God. We now know in our beliefs that we have a direct link to God, okay? But in the Bible, it says wisdom, knowledge, faith, healing, prophecy, speaking in tongues are all gifts of the Spirit. Now, in my mind, I'm saying spirit, I mean God, source, okay? Also in the Bible, it talks about prophecy, ministry, giving, teaching, and showing compassion as gifts of the Spirit. In Timothy, Jesus tells Paul, and Paul tells Timothy that we have these gifts and that to not let them fail, have them be on the awareness. There's also something called in the Methodist Church, and one of the reasons why I was actually training to be a Methodist lay minister, and I got to this section and I asked too many questions, and I was like pushed out of the flock, so to speak. I realized the gifts of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and control. But I also remember Jesus saying, the miracles that I perform, you can too. You have these same abilities. The Methodist Church freaked out. I had to leave it, and that's okay because I had gotten what I needed, and it led me to this to the New Thought School of Ministry. I also want you to know that Jesus was a miracle worker, and that all through all the studies we have, miracle workers we're being asked to step up, be the light, and be the miracle worker in this transition, in this change that's happening in the earth. I already talked a lot about how I connect to spirit, but I just wanted you to remember that when you meditate, you're actually going to that vastness. You're letting spirit in, okay? You're actually reaching your higher consciousness. The idea is to stay in that higher consciousness. I learned it at age 20 as the Christ consciousness. Now, it can be referred to however you want to, and there are so many different studies out there, and it's that whatever resonates with you. It's just that you know that you're getting to a higher vibration. And the whole goal here is to raise your vibration so that you can connect to source, connect to your divinity. It moves us closer to God, to being one with the infinite and the absolute. And I've been kind of reading along, not so much in Lucille's class, but in Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. And he calls us to have a direct experience with God. Okay, he leads us to that point. In A Course of Love, at the very end, Jesus leads us to the top of the mountain. And he says, now go and be divine. Miss Mary, in a few weeks ago, said, in your humanness, practice your divinity. And of course, A Course in Miracles constantly tells us that this is an illusion and that we are much more than what is just presenting ourselves, but we have to get to it. We have to get to our divinity. I did some research on the Quakers because I find it so fascinating that Fellowship for Today is meeting at the Quakers. The Quakers sit in silence and listen for spirit every Sunday. They know the connection. They get the connection. And if somebody like myself who would go and is really open to being able to feel comfortable giving a message, did you hear what I just said? Feeling comfortable with giving a message. That didn't come from me. That came from a higher source encouraging me to move on. Thank you for letting me recognize that. Sit with that for just a second, because I've been teetering with how I want to proceed. And so let me tell you that I've got a lot here I want to cover, but I want to get back to what Julia asked me, but I have to say something very important here. I was my husband's caregiver when he was in hospice for about 6 months. And watching him go from a very healthy, very smart man to passing, of course, he became delusional right here in the living room with me. He was delusional. He would see people. He came to the point where he didn't know where he was at. He'd say, Debbie, are we at a resort somewhere? It is just so cool here. And I said, this is our home. And I said, and it is like a sanctuary, isn't it? And all he could do was shake his head. He got to a point the last few days that all it was misty in the room. And he also got to points in which he would say to me, do you know that we're not alone? And I would go, okay, because I was still kind of trying to get my own bearing about this. And it comes up to me now that I understand it was probably his grandfathers that were there ready for him. So those are things I'm trying to decide, is that something that I think I could help people with that are making their transition, that I could sit with them and help them not be afraid, because he was afraid and I was trying really hard to help him not be afraid, but I was afraid too. Okay, I'm much better now. But in his last days, he said, can I come and sleep with you? And we put our arms around each other and held each other. And he said, there are people in the room. And all I could do was to just pray for protection and covered. I know that it wasn't anything harmful, but I knew what was happening. So I might use those as my skill. I'm asking divine, what am I supposed to do with all this? So do any of you ever had an experience like that with someone who is making a transition? I'm sorry, I lost your children. I wondered if that was too much of a Leroy, if that was too close to home. I'm really sorry. Will you
No, they
apologize
just
if
they have a lot of stuff going on right now,
okay,
and
I
3 people with different agendas in that meeting.
okay,
So,
okay,
or
okay.
4.
Okay. I want to also, there are 2 different levels that I'm experiencing right now. One is psychicness and one is being a medium. The difference is when you're a medium, you tune in to making connections to loved ones who have transitioned over. And I do that when I set my intention for my reading and I ask for only the highest and the best. I surround myself in a white light. um, and I give thanks and appreciation, those kinds of things. There's also a psychicness about me, and that's where my spirit guide connects with your spirit guide, and I'm able to get intuition kind of through and give messages that way. A big thing that I didn't address much is the whole aspect of intuition. Intuition is something that you recognize probably very early on and that you can use to your benefit. And the biggest thing for those of us who are developing along this lines is to trust ourselves, to trust our intuition. And so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to the false narrative in my brain, uh, in my mind, my ego telling me, you can't do this. You're just making up shit. You're interpreting it how you should think it should be. Um, you have to learn to shut all that off, to shut that out, and to trust your intuitiveness. I've learned from Lisa Williams to set the intention in my brain, breathe, ask my spirit guides, ask my angels, ask my loved ones to come through me, to protect me, and to help me give a clear and accurate reading. But it does require you getting out of your head and falling back into that false narrative. Also, that you have to believe that the information that you're getting is true. Okay. Now, I gave some readings this past week, and the past 2 weeks, I'm not going to lie and say that I sat at home and wondered about each one of those readings. And my ego said to me, that was wrong. That wasn't for that person. I had to work really hard to say, back off, get out. I know that it was truth. Okay. But that constantly, and I even think that happens with very trained mediums. And I'm just a kind of a baby beginner. But you have to believe, and I have to continue to do my homework. And part of my homework now is deciding, how am I going to use these gifts that I have? How am I going to use it? I'm actually a trained dental hygienist, for those of you who know that. So I work with my hands, my little arthritic hands now, for 40 years. And it wasn't until the last 10 years that I realized I was a healer working internally. Wow. If I would have had that insight at age 24, though I have to believe that I was of a high enough vibration my whole life, even though I had some ups and downs, that I was vibrating high enough that I was able to give healing to those mouths that I worked on, to those people that I worked on. I have to hold that in my heart, because there was never anything that I ever did that I was doubtful of, or that I I misdiagnosed something perhaps, but I mean the treatment. I guess I think you know what I mean. I was true at heart as a healthcare provider. Um, so Julia, I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I will say that um, I I do sit with myself before each reading and ask for clearness and ask my angels and my spirit guides and my loved ones to be with me uh, as I make connection with spirit. So, but not only do it when I do my readings, of course, don't you, we all do when we ask for our travel travel protection, so to speak. We ask for protection in the mornings when we wake up. The Course of Miracles teaches us, what would you have me do today? Who would you have me meet? What would be what you would like me to do? So in the same essence, you can live by asking spirit and your guides for those kinds of protections and guidance. Does that help, Julia?
You're muted, Julia. I just want to
I
remind,
asked,
oh,
I,
I just
I
want to
asked,
remind folks too, we have about 10 more minutes,
yeah,
and Julia was going to say something, and I also encourage us to just reflect if there was anything particular that struck you today
yeah.
that you resonated with, and especially if anyone hasn't spoken that wants to speak.
Thank you, by the way, for letting me ramble.
It was valuable, very valuable. So do you see a distinction between spirit guides and angels and ancestors, or do they all just you just see them all as having the same purpose for us?
Um, I'm not, I'm not really, I don't want to say good enough, but I'm not clear enough to give an honest answer. When I get my readings, I don't, most of the time I ask for loved ones to come through. So I know that loved ones come through. Now I gave a reading this week and the sitter asked if she asked a prophecy type of a question where I had to then go into a psychic type of state. Um, so I don't know how to answer that, Julia. Maybe next year.
And I wanted to ask one more thing. You touched on all of us or the world being in transition, I think you said, or being at the cusp of or at the brink of something.
A shift.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really have any insight into that, only then that I've been paying attention to other psychics. I've been paying attention to uh, what's all being given and all around us, and it's pretty evident with the lining up of the planets and just some of the stuff that's coming to the surface that more than likely, and even if you were to look at Marianne Williamson, she's talking about us being the illuminator. Now she's my age, we're both 70, so she's realizing that she has, you know she's got a message she's got to get out there too. So that's all I know on that, but maybe we'll know more as time goes on about what the shift is. And maybe someone already does. I can't answer that.
I think there are people all over the planet who are um, studying and searching like this group.
Yes.
And I really think that that shift is going to come from people who are aware.
I think that's true, Lucille,
Mhm.
because it's happening all over our world.
Right.
And some of the things that we're experiencing perhaps have to happen in order for the shift to happen. Now, then again, you think about what I'm just beginning to learn and understand about quantum physics, which was way over my head when I was in the School of Ministry. It's only now that I try to grasp. I've always had a problem with understanding time and space, but I was thinking about it in my humanness. But when I try to go into the spirit world and I think about there is no time and space is, I think they say linear, right? And that's why sometimes, and I don't quite get it yet, but how different life's experiences are happening at the same time and all that. Um, and not my expertise to speak on that.
I want to say we got to wrap up fairly shortly, but I appreciate your willingness to come out of the closet, Deborah, and also not feel like you have to be the know-it-all or even provide all the answers, or even your willingness to say that you don't know the answer, which you've said at least
Good.
once here. And I encourage other folks too, if you would like to share anything else now, or if you'd like to speak or suggest a topic at a future dialogue, it's open. And Lucille, I don't know if you're still on for, or if you're up for April, but
April 11th.
yes, if that talked about
Okay.
maybe sharing your spiritual journey, or
Okay.
what, however you want to frame it, would be wonderful. Is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I can do that.
Fantastic. Well, everybody mark that on your calendars. Thank you. And I don't want to have the last word here, but I just wanted to mention that, and thank you all for, Deb, especially for sharing your in process, state of the moment self.
I will thank you, LaVoy, for this platform. I mean, you will intuitively, I know that you know how grateful I am for it. I really am grateful for this. Now I have to figure out how gingerly I'm going to go walk because, I mean, how many people can you tell I'm a medium, or I'm psychic, or my mom doesn't even know. I've tried to mention things and there's like a wall. So,
I like
but
Bashar's advice to trust your inspiration, follow your inspiration as your guide. And so
yeah,
you don't have to know where your next inspiration is going to come from, but that's just my own belief.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there are going to be people who won't accept what you're doing, and that's okay. That's just where they're at.
Yeah.
Even if it's your mother, that's where she's at. You can love
One,
her anyway.
right. Oh, yes. In fact, when I talk about going to that vastness and that state in meditation, many of us can relate to that as being what pure love or the essence of love, peace, light, that whole. One of the messages I got from my husband, Scott, on the other side, which we talk all the time, and I had the presence of mind why he was still able to speak with me to ask him if he would continue to talk with me, be my lover, be my friend. Um, he says that we are now vibrating at a high level together, and that our caring and love for each other will always continue, even though he's on the other side. And so that was really part of my healing too, understanding that I haven't really lost him. I've lost him in the physical, but he's near me whenever I ask. So this,
I,
for those of you who have lost somebody, it's quite a journey. And anyway,
I wanted to say I appreciated Julia's perspective too about processing, asking a question and letting it sit, not necessarily have to have the answer right away, but sometimes the guidance will come to you the next day or through a dream, and you don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah, you just have to be watching for the clues.
Yep.
And the guidance.
Does anyone have any other parting comments before we sign off? And again, thank you everyone for showing up and participating.
If anyone would like a reading, you can just email me and come on over.
Thank you.
I'm still in the practice mode, so no charge. Thank you, Leroy.
Thank you,
Peace.
Leroy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. And Lucille for joining us next month to help facilitate. And Debbie,
Okay.
I don't know if we met, but thanks for being here.
Yeah, my friend Deb Zell. I don't know if she's even here. I bet she is. She's my friend.
Okay.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.